from where Pam started. Because growing up in my house, I was the oldest of 4 boys, and growing up in our house, we experienced a whole lot of broken things. I mean, every time you turned around in our house, I don't know about yours, but in ours, something was broken. 4 boys my mom had to rear by herself. And as a result of that, there's just a whole lot of broken stuff in our home. Everything from furniture to toys. I can remember, anybody remember the Rock'em Sock'em robots? Yeah, I remember getting those for Christmas, one Christmas, and before New Year's, they were broken. They just weren't of any use anymore. And we experienced a lot of that growing up in our home, because it's something about boys and toys. I don't know what it is, but it's something about how boys seem to break a lot of stuff. Boys seem to have that way of breaking things, and it was not just limited to toys with us. We could break furniture. I remember one morning, one afternoon, this is when, and I may date myself when I say this, but this is when getting like tire inner tubes was real popular, and you would jump on it and flip off. You remember? Yeah. And you jump on it and flip off. Well, we got one, right? And I don't even know where we got it from, now that I think about it. And my brothers and I decide that we're gonna have a flipping contest in the living room. Not outside, like where the normal kids would do stuff. But we decided that we were gonna have a flipping contest in the living room. And needless to say, there were a few pieces of furniture that were broken that day, because we just kind of went for it. We were, jumping on the inner tube and just flipping all over the place. And we kind of had a code amongst ourselves that whenever Mom asked who broke something, that the youngest one was going to be the one who, he would have to take the hit for everybody, for the rest of us. Because, that just came with being the youngest. You had to kind of take the brunt for things that happen in the family. And most of the time, our mother's response to things that were broken is that she would take some stuff. It depends on how broken it was. There was some stuff that if it was broken beyond repair, she'd take it and just put it in a closet, or she'd take it and toss it in the trash. But if there were some things that were broken that, wait a minute, maybe this thing can be fixed, maybe it can be repaired. Sometimes I don't know how y'all could repair, like when the head of a dog comes, it's like off. But maybe, I don't know. But anyway, those things that she thought that there was some chance of it being repaired, she put it on a shelf and say, I'm going to get to it a little bit later, and I'll fix it a little bit later. But those things that she knew, like that day when we broke the lamp, when we were flipping in the living room and we were flipping on flips, and we broke the lamp, and it was shattered in so many pieces, so it couldn't be repaired. So that she just took, I remember she took it, and she was angry too about it. But I mean, 4 boys, so it's like, you know, 4 boys, there's stuff that's gonna break or get broken or be broken, I guess we should say. But she took the lamp and she tossed it and threw it away because it was, in her mind, it was beyond repair. It couldn't be fixed. Have you ever felt that way? Broken? Like, this thing I'm experiencing now is beyond repair. Have you ever felt that way? Like something happened to you and then some people put you on that proverbial shelf because what happened to you or what was going on with you, there was no longer any use for you. Have you ever been there where you felt like some that were with you for a while, and as long as everything was going fine, they were with you, but then something happened and they tossed you to the side, they just kind of threw you away or said, you know what, I'm going to get a new you. Because the present you is not the you that I want, so I'm just going to replace you with a younger version of you. There's something about how we as people deal with things that are broken. There's something about how we as a society, we even frown upon brokenness as if experiencing brokenness is the worst thing that could ever happen to someone. It's when it's something about how we deem things that have been broken or are experiencing brokenness, we deem those things not as important anymore. Or because they're not like everything else, then there's really no use for them. When we see children grow up in a home where there's only one parent instead of 2, we refer to that home as being broken. Yeah. We put the tag, we put the title on that home, and we say, well, those children or that child, they're growing up in a broken home because they don't have 2 parents that are working together in the home or under the same roof. So we will classify that family as a broken family, and sometimes we won't even expect as much coming from that family because we say that they're growing up in a broken home, or when a relationship or a marriage ends, we say that that's a broken marriage. We put the tag on there. We put the title to it. And if we know of a relationship or a marriage that is ending, we say that it's a broken marriage. And some of us will go as far as to pick sides of that which we have classified now as broken. It's something about how we as people deal with brokenness. How if their dreams don't come to fruition, then we say they're suffering from broken dreams. And then there must be something wrong with them. There's something about how we as a people deal with brokenness, and I want to challenge us this morning as we look at this experience, this encounter that Jesus has with this woman in Simon the leper's house. And as she comes there with this jar of expensive perfume, and no one has to tell her to break the jar.
Yeah.
But I want us to look at this because I think there's some things that we can learn from this jar being broken and how it ends up being a beautiful thing, although some that were in attendance wouldn't agree. Oh, isn't that how life can be at times?
Yeah.
Something can happen in your family or in my family, and it end up being some painful situation that God uses to create purpose in somebody's life. But for some reason or another, many of us that look at it may not agree.
Yeah.
May think that just because something has been broken, now it's no longer good for any use. So let's look at this thing, because there is beauty that can be found in brokenness if we look at it the right way. If we take the view Christ has of this experience where this woman breaks this expensive jar of perfume, but yet there were some who said, no, this is a waste of money. This is a waste because we could have used this for something better than what she's chosen to use it for. So let's look at this thing for just a little while. How is it that we can find beauty in brokenness? Here's one of the first things that we can consider about brokenness that is so beautiful is that brokenness is no barrier to God's presence.
All right.
Oh, man.
All right.
That even in my brokenness, that can't keep God away from me. Let's look at it in verse 3 real quick. It says, while he was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the home of Simon the leper, this is Jesus at Simon the leper's house, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume, made of pure nard, Mark tells us. She broke the jar and poured the perfume on his head. Here's the thing. Jesus is at Simon the leper's house. Now that in itself is something, because people who had leprosy, no one wanted to be around them. And in fact, culturally, they were told, don't associate with people who have leprosy, because leprosy is contagious. It's like the cooties, you might get it. So in their society, and the way their social makeup was made, that those that had leprosy, you were told to stay away from them. You were told to stay as far away from them as you could. In fact, many of them were told that you have to live on the outsides of the city. You couldn't live in the city. They would push you out of the city because they didn't want your kind in the city. So they would orchestrate ways to move people out the city that they didn't want in the city, because they thought they'd bring the city down if we allow them to live in the city. Simon has a guest. Jesus is at Simon's house, and this woman, Mark tells us, John does even better in his account of this story. John tells us it's Mary. in John chapter 12, I think it is. John identifies the woman. Mark doesn't identify the woman. John tells us that it's Mary who comes into the house, and she has this expensive jar of perfume. Now, here's the thing that gets me, though. She doesn't have to be told to break the jar. It's of her own volition that she breaks the jar and pours, Mark says, pours the perfume on his head. In order for her to pour the perfume on his head, he had to be near the broken jar.
Yeah.
Here's the thing that we have to understand about God, is that even in our brokenness, that is not a barrier to God being present with us. That's not a barrier. Our brokenness doesn't keep God away from us. In fact, it's probably one thing that will even draw God closer to us, is that when we are in a broken state or experiencing some brokenness, that is one of the times that you really ought to look closely for God, because God joys in being around people that are broken. God loves that. That, because see, something about in being in brokenness helps us to see. It's like this. What was in her jar, breaking the jar allowed what was in her jar to come out her jar.
Yeah.
That's why sometimes we have to go through stuff. Yeah, that's why sometimes we have to go through situations and circumstances that break us, because there's something in us that God wants to come out of us. And sometimes it won't come out of us unless there's some broken experience that we have with brokenness for that which is really in us to come out of us.
Yes.
Oh yeah, some of us have learned our most valuable lessons from painful situations. God doesn't even waste pain. Painful situations have, for some of us, painful situations have given us purpose. See, that's the thing you got to understand about God. God will take pain and wrap it around in his love and bring forth purpose out of it. So you see, beauty is there's beauty in brokenness, because brokenness is not a barrier to God's presence. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad that even in my brokenness, it can't keep God out. That even in all my messed up thinking and my state, it can't keep God from seeing about me. See, there's brokenness isn't a barrier for God. Now, here's the thing, though. It might be a barrier to some people. Because some people might start looking at you sideways when they know something's going on with you. Because see, that's how people can be. People don't understand the beauty of brokenness. And sometimes people will look at you in a different way because you're experiencing something going on in your life where God looks at it totally different. So brokenness is not a barrier. Second thing, and this is important for us to remember, because this is where sometimes, let me see how I can say this. Sometimes people, when we're experiencing brokenness, we will allow the thoughts of others let me see how I can say it. I want to be like polite to matter. We'll mess around and care about what other folk think. But let's look at the second thing up here. Brokenness is often misunderstood by other people. And that's why you have to be careful when you're experiencing brokenness, because some people around you might not understand what's going on with you or what God is doing with you. Let's look at it in verses 4 and 5. It says, now check this out. Some of those present were saying indignantly to one another, why this waste of perfume? It could have been sold for more than a year's wages and the money given to the poor, and they rebuked her harshly. Now check this out. She decides to break the jar, pour the perfume on Jesus' head. There are other people that are present in Simon's house. Mark doesn't tell us. John tells us, it's messed up. Because John identifies who initiated the conversation. John says Judas was the one who started it. Judas says that this is a waste, because we could have taken the perfume and sold it for more than a year's wages, and we could have done some stuff for the poor. Judas says that. Let's think about it for a second. Judas is indignant about the thing. Like, this is a waste. We could have taken that money, we could have taken that perfume, sold it, got a year's worth of wages for it, and did something for the poor. Judas says this. See, this is why you have to be careful who you allow to speak into your life. Because some people just don't even know what they're talking about. Listen, Judas could have taken it, sold it, more than a year's wages, could have gave it to the poor. Sounds good on the surface, right? Doesn't sound like a bad deal. We could have taken this and done something for those that are less fortunate. That would have been a good thing. Judas says that this is a waste. This is the same dude, right, who sold Jesus out for 30 pieces of silver. It's the same dude who's walked with Jesus, right, who's spent time with Jesus, who is traveled with Jesus, and he says that this was a waste what this woman did. Okay, y'all not getting it. Judas says that her taking the perfume, breaking that jar, and pouring it upon Jesus' head was a waste of expensive perfume. Yeah. We could have taken that and done something for the poor. Here's the dude that wasted all this time, wasted walking with Jesus, wasted his entire life, is going to talk about something being a waste. See, that's why you got to be careful who you allow speaking in your life and what people's thoughts are about the brokenness or the experience that you're having. Because sometimes people just don't even know what they're talking about. Here he has wasted his entire life. He's walked with Jesus. He's shared with Jesus. But that didn't amount to anything. And he would still turn his back on Jesus. But yet he's going to talk about some perfume. See, sometimes what people will do is, instead of considering what's going on in their lives. All right. Oh, boy. They want to become experts wasted this perfume. We're going to use this perfume. All the while, it's the same guy who's going to turn on Jesus. See, sometimes your brokenness and what God's going to do with your brokenness is misunderstood from people that are around you. And instead of people rallying with you, some think it's their ecclesiastical duty to define your destiny for you. Last thing. Brokenness is not a barrier. Right? Brokenness is often misunderstood. But here's the thing about brokenness that I think that we have to really get a handle on, is that brokenness can lead to beauty. Difficulty, hardship, heartache, all that stuff that we experience in this thing called life. God can use that stuff to build something beautiful out of our lives. Let's look at verses 6 through 8. This is the last thing he said. He said, now, listen to what Jesus says. Leave her alone. See, he's looking at it completely different. Sometimes the way people see things is with a limited view. Yeah. He's looking at it completely different. Leave her alone. Why are you bothering her? Check out what he says. She has done a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you. And you can help them any time you want. But you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured perfume, check this out, on my body beforehand to prepare for my burial. Understand what he's sharing with them. He's trying to help elevate their thinking. She's doing something that's proactive. She's doing something that is directed by future thinking. She's preparing my body before my burial. Remember, these are the same dudes that had a problem with him going to be crucified. They couldn't understand it. No, wait a minute, how you going to give your life? You're going to go away from us and leave us. They could not understand it. This woman did. So instead of her doing something reactionary, she does something proactive and prepares his body for what is about to go through. And Judas is standing there with his religious self saying that you've wasted this. Jesus says, hold on, no, you're looking at it wrong. Leave her alone. Yeah. She's got it. She understands that what she is doing is what's going to happen is a once in a lifetime kind of thing. Yeah. And sometimes you and I miss our once in a lifetime things listening to other folk trying to tell us about our lives and how we should go and where we should go, rather than listening to the one that created our lives, the one that sacrificed his life for our lives, so that we can take advantage of those opportunities that sometimes only come around once in a lifetime. Yeah. She does something that's phenomenal. She's not waiting for something to happen. She's living her life, I guess you could say, on the offense rather than the defense. Yeah. She's not waiting to see what happens to her in life and then respond accordingly or react accordingly. She's living her life on the offense, saying that, hey, I know what he's told multitudes of people is going to happen, and therefore I've got this once in a lifetime opportunity, and what I'm going to do is break this jar of expensive perfume that I have, and I'm going to prepare his body before it gets buried, before he gets crucified. The rest of y'all will catch up with me later, but right now I'm in a space and in a place where I'm forward thinking, and I'm moving ahead, and I'm taking on proactive measures rather than reacting to what happens in life. She's doing something that I think we could learn a lesson from her about. She's taking that which is broken and allowing it to be used for something beautiful. So much so until Jesus has to be the one. Here it is. He has to be the one to confirm what she's doing, because the people around her can't understand it. Oh, man, there it is. There it is. There it is. You got to learn how to live your life in such a way until what people around you say isn't what drives you, it's what he says that's driving you. It's got to be, your life has to be lived in such a way, because we live in a society where people are going to voice their opinions and say things about you, but you got to learn to live your life in such a way that I understand that even in my brokenness, there's something beautiful that's about to happen. God's going to do something beautiful with me that is about to happen. Listen, I'm through because we got to go. No, nothing at the house is broken. Okay, y'all. But anyway, I was checking out something the other day. It was talking about Japanese culture. Japanese culture has began to understand this whole thing about things being broken and they still have value. In fact, the Japanese will say that they even have greater value, because what the Japanese have began doing, they have this whole new thing in art that is called kintsugi. It's called kintsugi. And what kintsugi is that the Japanese will take anything that is ceramic that has been broken, or any piece of pottery that has been broken, and they say, look, don't throw it away. What we will do is repair it. And this is what they do. They take the fragmented pieces and they put it back together using liquid gold, liquid silver, and liquid platinum. And now what happens is that piece of pottery that was, I don't know, maybe worth $20, now it becomes even of greater value, and it's worth $200, $300, $400, and $5. And what happens is you get to see the broken pieces of it, because those pieces are highlighted by the liquid gold, the liquid silver, or the liquid platinum. And depending on which metal is used, it will determine how expensive the piece is. So in other words, what they have learned to do is take things that have been broken and start to put those things back together. And because, listen, no two things can be broken the same way. Oh my God. So that means that this piece right here is an original. There is no other piece in the world like it, because the way it was broken wasn't broken the same way that this piece was broken. And what they've learned is something that you and I need to learn about people's lives, is we got to stop throwing people to the side just because we think that they've been broken, or just because they've experienced some brokenness in their life. No, we got to learn from the Japanese and learn from our Lord that those that have been broken can be put back together again, and they don't have to hide their brokenness, but they can delight in the fact that, yeah, I used to be broken, and my heart used to be broken, and my finances used to be broken, and my bank account used to be broken, but God brought me through some stuff, and he put me back together again. And now I don't have to care about what they say, or what they say, or what as they say, all I got to do is be concerned about the one who put me back together again, because he's the one who loves me and cares for me and provides for me. You see? Don't go out here counting out broken people. Or even if you're suffering from brokenness yourself.
Yes.
Don't worry about those who may be counting you out. Consider what he thinks.
Yes.
Because see, he looks at stuff, he looks at brokenness completely different than the way we look at it as people. We're quick. Oh, well, it must have been something you did. Well, surely he deserves, or she deserves that. And all the while, the Lord says, leave them alone. Because there's something I'm going to do with their brokenness. You've been loved from Adam, from Genesis to Revelation. All those Bible heroes broken. All of them broken. Yeah, I know we kind of held them or hold them up as these heroes, these sheroes. But all of them had to experience brokenness. All of them had to go through this thing called brokenness so that God could bring forth something beautiful out of their lives. I think the scripture says what you meant for evil, God meant for good. He's the one that can recycle it. So we don't even have to be ashamed of our brokenness.
Yeah.
I know, because you know how we, and we sometimes we even do it with objects. If it's something that's been broken and we try and repair it and fix it, but we try and keep it hidden so that no one can see that there's a dent, there's a scratch. God says, no. When you're willing to deal with that and see that that's part of your journey with me, you don't have to hide from that anymore. You don't have to allow that to have control over you. It's a beautiful thing when we understand God's perspective about brokenness. Because y'all know how we get, something's going on, we stay away from church. Because I'm going through something. That's the best time. Don't talk to people anymore. Well, girl, where you been? I've just been going through some stuff. Brother, where you been, man? I've just been going through some stuff. Because for so many of us, we feel we have to hide the brokenness. Because if someone sees it or knows about it, then they're going to think less than us. We have to be careful and cautious about what other people think versus what God thinks. If we could just rest on our feet for just a moment, perhaps there's